Okay, good morning students. My name is Sir Dardar and welcome to yet another episode of my online lectures. Now before I begin with the discussion for today's lesson, I'd like to give a few shout-outs. Shout-outs to the students of Colegio de San Ignacio. I know that many of you have been asking my mom whether I am indeed her son. Yes, Teacher Dinah is my mother. And my second shout out goes out to the students of Malayan Colleges Mindanao, especially those in grade 11. I hope this video will prove to be helpful as you begin writing your chapter 4. Now, without much ado, let's proceed with the lesson. For today, we are going to talk about chapter 4 or the research results and discussions. I will be dividing this lecture video into 5 parts. Okay, those 5 parts are as follows. First, I will talk about the components of chapter 4. Second, I will talk about the process of writing the results and the discussions. And we will proceed to the discussion of the parts of chapter 4 when we are from a phenomenological study standpoint. And we are also going to discuss chapter 4 from a multiple case study standpoint. And lastly, I will give you a sample of a cross case analysis for a multiple case study approach. Okay? As we proceed, I will also be giving you samples, examples, which you can use as a reference when you do begin writing the chapter 4. So let's proceed. For the components of chapter 4, there are 3 main components. 1, you are going to have the background and characterization of your participants. Sir, who will be doing that? Well, the researchers will. As researchers, you have to get to know your participants, and as such, I suggest during your data collection procedure, you are going to ask probing questions or questions that will allow your participants to tell you more about themselves. But a word of caution, this is not a Miss Universe question and answer portion. No, I suggest that you ask background questions which are related to your study. Okay? You cannot ask them random questions which are not part of your research. Next, we are also going to include the emergent themes, and before anything else, I would like to clarify that these emergent themes are not the same ones that you have included in chapter 2. These themes are based on the transcription codes that you will be developing later in this video. Lastly, you are also going to include the transcription entries which you have formulated following your interview with your participants. And as such, those are the components of chapter 2. To specify, okay, when we write chapter 2, and knowing that those are the components, we begin with the coding of the transcription. Sir, in the past, you have mentioned that we have to code just exactly, what exactly is a code? That's the question. Well, a code is a summary of the response of a participant to your question. Sir, can there be more than one code? Yes, there will be one code assigned to every response. Which means if you ask question number 1 and participant gives you a response to that question, there is one code assigned to that response. Which means if you have 5 questions, 5 responses, then you might have 5 codes at the end of your transcription. These codes are acquired, or these codes are formulated by sifting through the transcriptions and coming up with a general statement which will help you encapsulate the entire response. I will be giving you a sample later on. Second, once those codes have been generated, we are now going to create and formulate your emergent themes. Now again, these emergent themes come from the codes. Once you have all the codes from all your participants, you are now going to identify similar codes across all participants. From there, you are going to generalize them even further. That generalization is what we call an emergent theme. Take note, you must identify a common code among your participants. Sir, do they have to be exactly similar? No. They have to be similar in terms of thought, in terms of concept. They do not necessarily have to contain the same words. Okay, again, to clarify, from the transcription, all the responses, there are codes. That's participant 1 and all the codes, participant 2, all the codes, participant 3, and all the codes. From these codes, we will be identifying common codes. We will be generalizing these codes and then coming up with an emergent theme. Next step, once we have identified and formulated an emergent theme, we are now going to start explaining and discussing that emergent theme. How do we do that? We use three things. First, you are going to use the statements of your interview participants, the specific statements. Second, you are also going to support those statements using your related literature. And third, you are going to deepen the discussion and help explain the perception or behavior of your participant using the theories that you have identified in chapter number 1. Now, allow me to give you an example, just like I promised. I don't know if this is highly visible in this video, but I will be giving you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation upon request. So, if you want a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, just let me know. Hit me up on social media, and we'll find a way for me to send you the file. But this is an example of a transcription for one question. Okay, this is the question, and these are the responses. Now, from this transcription, as I said, this response will be assigned one code. So one code, one code, one code, one code, and then another code. Those codes will now be used in order to come up with an emergent theme. Okay, these are the codes that we have developed. First code is dependency on others. Second code is difficulty in doing tasks without parents. Third is adjusting in terms of time and budget. Fourth is a change in lifestyle. And lastly is dependent on parents. Those are the codes that we have assigned to the statements that we can find right here. They are arranged in order. From these codes, the next question is, sir, how are we going to formulate the emergent themes? As you can see, I have assigned some codes with a yellow font color. That's because these codes are the ones which are similar. Which means, because they are similar, we can now formulate an emergent theme based on these similarities. So the similar codes are as follows. 1, dependent on others. 2, difficulty in doing tasks without parents. 3, a change in lifestyle. And 4 is dependent on parents. What's the common ground? They all talk about a difficulty in adjusting because they are dependent on other people. And as such, we can now formulate this emergent theme, dependency on others. And from there, we are going to explain this emergent theme again using three things. Statement of the participants, the related literature, and third will be the theories that you have used in chapter 1. And as promised, here is a sample of how you are going to discuss this emergent theme. Again, this is simply the content. You must adjust the format according to your institutional guidelines. Okay, so this one, okay, is merely the discussion of this emergent theme. I did not include the background and characterization of the participants, just the explanation of the emergent theme. This one pertains to this. The one in yellow will be the actual statement of the participant, and here you have a transcription coding. Sir, is a transcription code different from the actual code? Yes, the transcription code refers to the location or the specific lines that your participant said during the interview. It says P1, Q2, S1. This one is a mnemonic. Participant 1, question number 2, sentence number 1. Which means that this response is what participant 1 said for question number 2, and this one is sentence number 1. P1, P2, P4, and P5, which means statement of participant 1, participant 2, participant 4, and participant 5. Sir, what happened to participant 3? The statement of participant 3 does not agree or is not in line with the statements of the other participants. Therefore, his or her response will be used as an addendum, an additional discussion in the later part of this emergent theme. Okay. After you have included the statements of your participants, this portion includes the RRL or the related literature which supports the statement of your participants. And this particular paragraph discusses the theory that will help you explain the behavior or the perception of your participants. Again, if this part is not visible, I will be releasing a copy of the PowerPoint upon your request. Now, please take note that format is for phenomenological study only. For multiple case studies, we are not going to automatically integrate all of the common themes. No, we are going to discuss the codes individually, okay, per participant. One chapter, one participant, which means if you have 10 participants in your multiple case study or 5 participants in your multiple case study, you are going to discuss their experiences in separate chapters. I'll give you an example. One of my students will have a study regarding solid waste management, and they are asked to have 5 barangay captains. That means that they're going to dedicate 1 chapter each for every barangay captain. But should there be a triangulation among statements of barangay captains, observations, and an FGD, then you will have 1 chapter for the barangay captains, 1 chapter for the FGD, and 1 chapter for your, or a separate part for your researcher observations. That is how we are going to proceed. But if there are multiple cases, 5, 10, 8 cases, then 1 participant will be given 1 chapter, and their responses will be coded. Those codes will serve as your emergent themes. So, sir, when do we integrate those experiences? When do we condense the experiences of our participants if we are conducting a multiple case study? You are going to integrate them during the cross-case analysis. This is the final part of this online lecture, and as you can see, there are check marks here. Okay? These are the areas that you focused on in your interview, and these check marks signify whose experiences or which experiences are common among the participants. I'll give you an example. Here we have reliable, timid, bipolar, ambitious, and diligent. These are just code names. From these participants, the experience of handling groups with freeloaders is common among reliable, bipolar, ambitious, and diligent. Which means that these cases, these participants, have experienced handling groups with freeloaders. The rest goes for the other codes, the other themes that we have identified among all the participants. But in general, to make it simpler, for phenomenological study, we have all these participants, but the discussion is condensed. For multiple case study, we need to discuss them as individuals first before we are going to condense. But sir, is the discussion similar? Yes. In multiple case study, you will still need three things. The statement of the participant, the RRL, and the theories. The same goes with phenomenological study. But again, the difference is that in phenomenological study, all those experiences are immediately condensed, while in multiple case study, we need to discuss their experiences first as individuals before we are going to condense using a cross-case analysis table. Well, I hope that this video has been helpful to you. I will be uploading another video next week in order to expound further on some of the other details that you will be needing in writing your chapter 4. But for now, that would be all. Again, this is Sir Dardar, and class dismissed. Bye-bye.